This is a cautionary tale for almost everyone in America, because if the government can do this to one man, it can do it to anyone. Meet Kilmar Garcia, who has been arrested by ICE and put in the infamous El Salvador prison. The only problem? Garcia is subject to a court order that bars his deportation to El Salvador because of credible fears of persecution. Oh, and the administration admitted the mistake, calling it an administrative error, but still refuses to return Garcia to the United States, claiming that he is a dangerous gang member. But since, at least for the moment, we still have laws in the United States, let's look at the legal facts, shall we? The United States government maintains that Garcia is a violent gang member, and they offered two pieces of evidence for this. Number one, a claim by a confidential informant made in 2019 claim that Garcia denies. And number two, his attire, because apparently in court, attire is now admissible evidence. But the government now maintains that it doesn't matter that they made an administrative error and deported Garcia against court orders. They say that they can refuse to repatriate Garcia because, according to them, he's a terrorist, and as such, constitutional protections do not apply to him. And that is the crux of the matter. The real question is, can the government refuse to return Garcia by just calling him a terrorist on the sole basis of a confidential informant's claim 6 years ago and how is dressed? The answer, in my opinion, is no, and here's why. The case involves constitutional and legal breaches because it involves the violation of 28 U.S.C. 2241 for unlawful detention and deportation, and the violation of the Due Process Clause under the Fifth Amendment. The proper venue for this case is federal court, not immigration court, because the question isn't whether or not Garcia was removable. We know he wasn't, because the government admitted that they made a mistake. And if the federal court is the proper venue for this case, then the federal rules of evidence, need to be applied. And those federal rules of evidence say that hearsay generally in federal court is not an admissible piece of evidence unless specific exceptions apply, but here I'm pretty sure they do not. Additionally, let me remind you that this specific hearsay is 6 years old. Under these rules, the only way that the government could use uncorroborated statements made by a confidential informant is if on top of it they add one of two things at least. Either additional objective independent evidence, and we know they probably don't have it or they would have already presented it, or the cross-examination of Garcia, who we know cannot be cross-examined because the government refuses to return him. And if this is the reaction of the US government to a 6-year-old gossip, I'm afraid we're slipping from justice to injustice disguised as bureaucracy.